Customs House still dominates the north bank of this section of the River Thames. Inside is the vast bond office. As head, John's great-great-grandfather William Brown would have been in charge of a staff of 500 clerks. Outside on the river, there might be as many as 400 ships, their holds crammed with goods from across the empire, none of which could be sold until the duties had been paid. William Richard Brown's bond office was the largest of its kind in the world. It would have taken millions of pounds in revenue every year. John has come to meet retired Judge Roger Cook to find out more about what the job of head of the bond office entailed.
How do you do? How do you do, John Hurst?
How do you do? I'm Roger Cook.
I hope so.
We have some papers for you to look at.
I'm really here to try and find out a bit more about my great-great-grandfather, who I understand from from the wedding announcement of my great-grandfather, that when he was listed as having been the head of the bond office.
Well,
now,
it may not have been quite as grand as that.
Yes, it did sound grand.
Yes, that certainly wasn't the title he had. Here we have him, for instance, in, I think, 1835, if you see there, in the plantations department. And he is there as second clerk, William Brown, earning £75, and we think that's a quarter, so £300 a year. But before that, he was what was called a cocket writer. And a cocket is the seal of Her Majesty's Customs on a document that says the duty has been assessed and paid. And the cocket writers worked here. And if you imagine that William, your ancestor, is over there.
A cocket writer.
Cocket writer. And you are here as the captain of a ship, which is parked up in the port of London outside.
Yeah.
In comes the ship's captain. Your ancestor assesses the amount of duty and it's paid, and the cocket goes on the document, and out goes the ship's captain able to sell it. And that's what he was doing.
Ah.
And that's what he did over a number of years. I'm afraid the reason we know so much about him was he got into frightful trouble.
Ah, runs in the family.
Well, there it is. Here we have him in the newspapers. In the Times of 1842, he's called there Thomas Richard Brown, but we know that's wrong because all the facts fit William beautifully. And he fell on very hard times. And he's in the insolvent debtors' court.
So why would he fall on hard times?
Well, people like cocket writers were paid a small salary, but they really made the money charging fees to the public.
He was on the make.
And the evidence given to the court is that this made him about £1,000 a year in a good year. And in the 1820s and 30s, £1,000 a year was a decent sum of money. But then things go wrong. His office is abolished. He's arrested for debt, imprisoned for debt, and only gets out by petitioning a court who let him out on the basis that he's insolvent and take the whole of his property, apart from the tools of his trade, if he had any, and his bedding.
That's interesting.
Isn't
Yes.
it?
Yes.
Not quite what you expected.
No, it's not what I expected at all. It's absolutely certainly not.
Yeah.
I don't quite know what I did expect, quite to be truthful.
Well, it's a bit of your family you didn't know about.
Yes, it surely is, but I might have known. I should have known. It all adds up. Well, what have we learnt? We've learnt that William, well, he wasn't what he was set up to be by his son, he was not by any means the head of customs. He was clerk, but he was also on the make, got into terrible trouble, put into debtor's prison, and so therefore the claim of Walter on at least at the wedding announcement in the local paper in Grimsby when he said that he was head of the bond office, if that isn't true, then I wouldn't be able to believe anything that he said was true. So he was a bit of a rogue and a vagabond, same as me.
Walter Lord Brown might have been a rogue, but that doesn't mean he couldn't have been descended from Irish nobility. Genealogist Laura Berry is John's last chance of finding a link.
Well, I've been looking into Walter Lord Brown.
Yes.
I've been trying to trace him back as far as I can to see if I can find a link with the Marquis of Sligo or his predecessors.
Yes.
So, what we have first of all is a rough tree of the Marquis of Sligo's predecessors going back through the Earl of Altamont and then beyond. I've been tracing William Richard Brown's tree to see if I can find any matching names.
Yeah.
See if they
Yes.
link in. And if you take a look at this, here we've got William Richard Brown right down the bottom again. And he married Harriet Catherine Lord, as you know, in 1808
yes,
in
yes,
London.
yes.
That's right. His parents were John Brown and Mary Johnson.
Yeah.
And John Brown was a grocer in the East End of London.
Yeah.
And were very much London-based. And their parents were Dr. William Brown and Susanna Hutchinson. Dr. William Brown was the son of a William Brown who was a mariner, and that's as far back as I've been able to get. If we compare the two trees, I mean, I haven't found a link.
You haven't found it?
No, I haven't found a link.
No.
Certainly not in Walter Lord Brown's near past.
So the whole sort of family story is rubbish.
Yeah.
Nonsense. From what we've discovered about him, I would say that it was a fantasy, definitely. But a fantasy that actually became real.
Yeah. I've found an obituary for Walter Lord Brown, just sort of digging around in the archives.
Oh, that'd be interesting. Mr. Brown was born in 1820, came to a good family, being descended on his father's side from a younger branch of the family of a late Marquis of Sligo. This is probably where it came from.
Yeah, it
But
looks
there doesn't
like
seem to be any connection, does there?
No, there doesn't. I think once it's been put in print like this, it's sort of
So he made
regarded
this
as-
up.
Yeah.
John's hopes of finding a link to Irish nobility have come to nothing. With an imprisoned bankrupt for a father and an illegitimate first cousin for a wife, Walter Lord Brown perhaps had every reason to create a fantasy ancestry. Inheriting the middle name Lord may have given him ideas above his station. Inheriting the surname Brown gave him the opportunity to fabricate a family background in which he became a member of one of Ireland's grandest families. The claim to be descended from Irish nobility has survived unquestioned for 3 generations before reaching Walter's great-grandson John Hurt, for whom it probably came to mean as much as it did to Walter, though for very different reasons.
I am not who I believed I was. That really upsets me. I'm not going to dance with pleasure to find out that this one thing that one of the bankers in my life isn't true. Am I?
One of the bankers?
Well, one of the bankers in my life was my Irish identity. For me. Yes, very important to me. I had very good reason to believe there was a connection, very good reason to believe to have it substantiated by the fact that when I went to Ireland the very first time, that I felt that I was where I should be. You know, I felt it was home. It isn't.
But that doesn't alter your feelings.
Of course it does. Alters my feeling completely. That's what I feel at the minute. I don't know. I'll probably laugh about it before I know where I am. But I don't feel like laughing now.